Arturo Thunder Gatti was found dead today in an apartment in Brazil. Gatti was on a second honeymoon with his wife and 10-month-old baby. He was discovered with blood stains on his neck and the back of his head. Few details are being released, but foul play is suspected. A champion at the junior lightweight and super lightweight divisions, Gatti was born in Italy, raised in Montreal, and later fought out of Jersey City, New Jersey. He burst onto the scene in December of 1995 with a thrilling knockout of then-champion Tracy Patterson. Also won an electrifying bout against Gabriel Ruelas 2 years later. Lost a pair of wars with Ivan Robinson. But Gatti will best be remembered for his epic battles with Irish Mickey Ward, a trilogy in which he claimed 2 of the 3 fights. Gatti won Ring Magazine's Fight of the Year 4 different times, first in 1997 against Ruelas, then in 98 versus Robinson, and twice against Ward. Ring Magazine also recognized Gatti as its Comeback Fighter of the Year in 2002. He retired in 2006 following a loss against Carlos Valdemir. Let's welcome in ESPN.com senior boxing writer Dan Rayfield now. Dan, your immediate reaction to this sad, sad news today?
I am trying to act like a reporter in this instance, but I'm taking it very personal. I'm devastated. I've known Gatti for years. I've covered many of his fights. You know, I've been with him in a few social situations. I mean, the life of the party, just a wonderful guy. I mean, he had his problems, like a lot of fighters, you know, had some demons for sure. But Arturo Gatti, you know, will go down as, you know, not the greatest fighter of all time, not even close, but I think that's part of the reason why people love him so much, because if you bought a ticket to an Arturo Gatti fight, you were going to have a great night at the fights, whether he won or lost. He was by far, in a way, so over the top, the most exciting fighter in the world for a period of time that it's not even close. And there's lots of great fighters that were exciting. There was fighters that were more skilled. There was fighters that were bigger punchers, fighters that were bigger. But nobody had a bigger heart than Arturo Gatti, and nobody made a better fights than Arturo Gatti. And, you know, you mentioned a few of the great fights, the Ivan Robinson fights. People don't remember really or care, frankly, that he lost both of those fights. You know, the fights against Mickey Ward were epic and will never be forgotten. You know, I was at 2 of those fights. It was just career that this guy had. You know, I'm going to get my videotapes out later, or my DVDs. I mean, I can't even believe what happened. I mean, it's just absolutely shocking.
Dan, you talked about demons. What kind of demons?
Well, you know, Arturo, like a lot of fighters, he you know, he lived a fast life, if you know what I mean. I mean, he had problems with alcohol at times. You know, he got in bar fights. You know, he liked women. I mean, there was lots of different things that Arturo Gatti did when the sun that went down, if you catch my meaning. I mean, I don't want to talk bad about a man that just passed, but you know, he had some run-ins with the law. Those are not secrets or anything like that. But you know, in his heart, and I knew Gatti for a long time. You know, this was, you know, a good guy.
Dan, what memory of Arturo Gatti stands out to you?
I mean, there are so many. I mean, being ringside at a lot of those fights. I mean, great fights. Seeing Gatti after fights being just smashed up, and, you know, but with a smile on his face, asking the reporters or other people that were around if you liked the fight. I mean, because it was important to him, as much as it was important to him to win and to make money and to win his titles and all that. You know, he did want to give the fans their money's worth, and I think that's one of the reasons why he fought those last, you know, almost, I think it was something like his last 9 fights in a row at Boardwalk Hall in Atlantic City, and they were all either, you know, sold out or near sellouts, and crowds on their feet. I mean, they just worshiped this guy. And when Gatti fought on the boardwalk, you know, the whole world in that part of New Jersey basically came to a stop because he was fighting.
He really was a real-life Rocky-type fighter. The ebb and flow of his fights were just so dramatic. He was once described as a puncher who could box. How would you best describe his boxing style?
You know, there's a reason why, if you read the bio, that Main Events, which was his promoter for virtually, I believe his entire career, Main Events promoted Arturo Gatti, the New Jersey-based company. He was called the human highlight film. You know, that epitomizes it, because you can, you know, it's one thing, some fighters had a memorable fight that people talk about forever, or 2, or maybe 3. Arturo Gatti had probably at least a half a dozen incredible fights, and that was before the Mickey Ward trilogy. And the Mickey Ward trilogy is what most people talk about. But even before that trilogy, he had tons and tons of incredible fights. You mentioned a few of them. One of the Tracy Patterson 2 fights, the Gabriel Ruelas fight, Calvin Grove, Angel Manfredi, the 2 Robinson fights, even Oscar De La Hoya, who he fought, which he got dominated in, was a very exciting fight while it lasted. The 3 Mickey Ward fights. I mean, you name it, and and it was. You could put together. You can't. There's too many highlights to make on a 30-second clip. And I want to just make one correction. You mentioned in the intro here that he retired after the loss to Baldomir in 2006. He actually fought one more time after that against Alfonso Gomez from the Contender, a fight that he was expected to win easily, and that was in July of 2007. So it's been just about 2 years since his last fight. I mean, 2 years almost to the day. That fight was July 14th. And what I do remember very specifically about that fight was they had main events had a party for Gatti, figuring he was going to win. But even when you lose, you still have the party because people want to, instead of drink to get happy and eat and everything, they do it because they're sad and upset. And they had a real nice party at a steakhouse in Caesar's Palace down on the shore in Atlantic City. And I remember standing with Gatti after he came in. Everybody was there, kind of hanging out. It was as long after deadlines and everything. And Gatti came in a couple hours later, and he had a bandage on his face. He had been cut pretty severely in that fight. And he had a smile on his face, even though he kind of looked down. And he kind of walked in and he looked at me, and there was a couple other guys that knew him for a long time that were standing there, and he basically just shrugged his shoulders like, hey guys, sorry about that. What can I do? But I mean, that's just the type of guy he was. It was, he was down, but I think that he knew that he had given his best, and at that point, unlike a lot of fighters who say I'm retired in the dressing room after a very difficult loss, which is what he did after that fight. He said he was retired, and he never did come back. There was some talk here and there, but I don't think anything was ever serious. And he was one of those guys that I think when he realized the time was up, the time was up, and he was done as a fighter. And it's amazing, by the way, that he was able to continue to fight at that crazy level of punishment that he took for such a long time. You figure a guy had 3-4 fights like that, they'd be done. This guy did it time and time and time again, and won 2 world titles in the process. An
electrifying fighter, dead at the age of 37. Dan Rayfield, ESPN.com senior boxing writer, many thanks.